Brick-a-Broke 23. Lately, I've been getting a lot of questions in regards to the Bluetooth receivers that have multiple outputs on the back of them. Can I use all of these outputs at the same time? Short answer is yes. This particular receiver has a set of analog RCA outputs. It has a single digital coaxial output, and it has an optical output. All these outputs output at the exact same time. And I'm going to give you kind of a real crude explanation of how this works. So we've got the Bluetooth receiver. We've got music coming in from, say, your cell phone. The music comes in here digitally. It goes over here, comes down this path here to our DAC section, our digital analog converter section. Okay, DAC has been used, that little DAC term has been used a lot in the Bluetooth receivers, because they'll say Bluetooth receiver with DAC. And I think they use that as a selling point. However, understand that all Bluetooth receivers that have RCA outputs have a DAC in it. That's how you get it from digital to analog, okay? So the music comes in here, it goes over and comes through the DAC. The same time, music's coming through here and coming to the output section of the digital outputs, the optical and the coax. So this outputs all at the exact same time. There are a few exceptions to that. There are some Bluetooth receivers, and first thing that comes to mind is the iFi Audio Zen Blue V1 and version 2. And they have all these outputs on them, but they have a switch on the back that you flip either over towards the analog side or the digital side. It's kind of rare, but on most of these, they all output at the same time. So what I want to do in this video is I want to show you that does that. So what I have here is my old school vintage bench stereo here. This has one auxiliary input. So I have a little switch box that I have here that allows me to put two inputs in, and then I can switch back and forth. So I'm going to use the RCA outputs here to the A channel on my little switch box, and on the B channel, because it's for A-B comparison, on the B channel, I am going to use my digital outputs, and I'm going to use that with my digital to analog audio converter. These little converters are really cool to have have around the house. If you're an audio guy like I am and you like to experiment, then this thing's a really nice thing to have, and they're under like 20 bucks. What this does is this converts all of my digital signals to analog, just like in here. All right, so I'm using this basically for demonstration, just to show you that they all work at the same time. So let me get my little cables configured here, and let me see here. I'm streaming from my home computer to this receiver, so let's make sure I've got my music queued up, and I do. All right, so what we're going to listen to first is just good old standard RCA output. All right, so here's the RCA outputs. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I flip my little switch box over to this box now. So anything that comes out of this box analog wise will go into my stereo. So let's hook up, what do we hook up first? Let's do the coax first. So there's our coaxial. Let's hook up the optical. Nope. I always do that. Okay, now I've got all of the outputs hooked up at the same time. There's analog. There's digital. Here is optical only. Here is coaxial only. Optical and coaxial at the same time, not a problem. So basically we have all of these outputs active right now, and we can just flip back and forth. So yes, the answer to this is yes, all of these outputs work at the same time. And that's a great question for you guys to ask, because there are people like me that like to do experimentation and find out what sounds better. You may have one of these little cheapy entry-level boxes, or maybe you have a nice DAC. I do that with my DAC. I have a little Ship Modi DAC. I'll leave a link to that down below. I'm actually using it right now, so I can't bring it into frame. But anyway, and the reason why you'd want to do that is because you'd want to find out, is whatever your outboard DAC, is that better than the one that's built into here? And it's kind of nice to be able to switch back and forth. Or maybe you have a modern audio video receiver and you want to see if your digital DAC or your built-in DAC in your home theater receiver is any good or better than this. So what you can do is you can hook all these up to your receiver, say on your home theater receiver, hook this up to auxiliary 1, or maybe a CD or a DVD or a VCR input, whatever you've got open. And then you can plug the optical directly into your optical input on your receiver and your coaxial directly into the coaxial input of your receiver. And you can switch between all three of these and see what sounds best for you. So I really like receivers that just have the three outputs active at the same time. I don't mind the receivers that you do have to switch the little switch on the back. I mean, worst thing you have to do is just basically reach back and flip the switch. But when they're like this, you can sit and play around. Okay. All right, and then I know that somebody's going to pick up on this. You're going to say, Mike, wait a minute. How come the DAC in this is louder? So this is the box here. Okay. And this is the internal DAC. And the real short answer on that is, when they design these DACs in this has to put out some sort of a signal. And they want this signal to be as close to, equal or as close to, say, like an aftermarket CD player, or an aftermarket DVD player, or an aftermarket tape player. You don't want to have much of a gap between output levels, because then you're working your volume switch on your receiver a lot. So, like, if this output level wasn't as high as the standard, which is about 2.1 millivolts out, then what you would be doing is you'd be having to jam your volume control up on your receiver really high. That's why I have this marked. But you'd have to turn this up really high to get decent music. But then when you go back to your CD player, say you're done listening to this, you go to CD player, and then you turn on your CD player, and this will just blow you out of the house. So what they want to do, I mean, a company that, you know, gives a hoot, they want to have a DAC output level here, or an analog output level that will come close to most other components. It's kind of an unwritten standard as far as outputs go, but that's why it does that. Now, my Ship Modi DAC will be louder than this one because it has a better circuit in it. It's more comparable to the DAC that's in here. So anyway, this little device is really nice to have if you have old vintage audio gear, because it just allows you so many different inputs. Maybe you could run this through a preamp to get the signal up higher if you wanted. I mean, it just gives us a lot of expandability. So anyway, there you go. That's the question. Do all of these outputs work at the same time? And yes, they do. If you see a switch on there, then they're going to be independent of each other. But I'll leave links to the BLT HD. I'll leave links to this down below. And I haven't got into production on my AB switch yet, but stay tuned for that. Anyway, there you go. All right, please leave questions or comments down below. If you have not yet subscribed to this channel, please consider doing so. I'd appreciate it. All right. Cheers, everybody, and thanks for watching.